CGQ Beach House Private Living, New Tracer Development, Cardon Tracer Development, indeed, developed despite noise and problems. We will have a conversation today, quite simple, quite clear. Having in mind our diary and limits imposed and always against our freedom as thoughts and free will, especially doing international cooperation against corruption and sometimes offering an anti-mafia procedure based on the oriented program by traces on instruments of control corrupted. The internal value -1 allowed us to get this circuit, which involves by decision levels of authority and command, and this hierarchical organization presented in the way we have allowed us equally in the same way to say clear that is organized crime. If goes inside an institution or regular area with misusage of chairs, distributing or redistributing power by illicit purpose, with parallel levels of activity, it's organized crime. Only goes on institution by the continuity of variables on it. The transparency and the accountability is a duty in Brazil of all institutions. And not only by this, but especially by other reasons, they are all integrated as failure. This failure, integrated, oriented by illicit purpose, which is, for instance, keep the advantage since 1988 on public budget. Brazil considered not only the Brazilian peers, indeed you have organized crime in a transcontinental level. This is the speech of the Interpol and the OECD. Then we will check that on May the 1st we will summarize things because we have offered the case, the arguments, and we suggested you to have the access at my email account and social media because we had violation of this before as my basic right and guarantee as privacy, even to do the development of my research on it, or the industrial portfolio as self-defense from the deep inside of this research. And after this, it's a channel with the judicial system. And this judicial system, by unfair aggressions against their own constitutional premise, now is victimized from the abuse as illicit access of these email accounts or social media. They can't be for sure inside the side of debtors committing crimes against the credit and creditors by frauds evidenced in the way they do things, one more time, as organized crime. Then we will check that we presented 3 topics on the 1st May. It's the introduction, the review of what we made by reports that we did, and this is to the judicial analysis. And one of those issues as entrance or gateway is this social media and email accounts. You can do the flow and reversal flow, and the way we are having this, very short conversation that you will get that we are dealing with organized crime on regular institutions, especially by the misusage of institutional power among public departments. Once in a while, you have treasons against the state by the special segment as treason against the use of state power by your will that do not dismiss said groups or request your own resignation, but insisted in what you did and you were charged by everything indeed you had done. Then, the industrial crime trials, we had control tests who could check that to clone your mobile at the very first moment, you must do this by the proximity, which implies the not authorized use of your machine or something by the Bluetooth. It's something that goes by proximity. And if you have, for instance, one exclusively service inside your relationship with this provider as mobile communication, like Spotify or something like this, you violated the consumer law. Switching things, we are telling one more time that the public corruption going integrated fail since 1988 can impact this research as a risk. And for sure you will present your reasons that it's not true. We do not have failures on budget and we do not act by blind eye association since 1988 to keep the systemic organization of organized crime. For instance, if you have failures on one department in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, like the capital city, Rio de Janeiro City, the police department has failures as cyber crimes. The case of one local deputy that got murdered by shot. Then the local prosecution and police said that broken 40,000 accounts and emails, and then we have this case at the Supreme Court in the same way 1 million persons with data violated. Is this alright? I think that's not right by Article 5, Item 12 of our Constitution. From here, the consequence, Article 37, paragraph number 6. In the same way, we will check that this kind of thing sets the instability and the premise of accusation against those kind of instability, which goes by international corruption, especially not having the legal accomplishment that you should do, and you never had. And in the same way, we can observe this by comparative measurement, by the tax examination and the property evaluation when you are unable to do and extend your own decision to your peers and relatives. Then we will check that this kind of thing, which is the systemic crime with workflow organized on regular area, only goes by variables inside. Was on May day 3. On May day 2, we had a control test about the proximity. Then we had on day 4, May, that the industrial portfolio as international cooperation from self-defense inside my academic research about economic and financial control. We observe that the misuse of chairs indeed can be a treason sometimes against the use of state power. The result is clearly observed since violation of basic rights and guarantees until the not symmetric registry you do not have the coming and going as flow and reversal flow by things that sometimes you do all things wrong, need the modified data to present things properly. It's the creativity account observed on public companies in Brazil and others. Then, this kind of thing as fake data, which allowed you sometimes to put anyone in an embarrassing situation and get them or her or this company inside your corruption scam. And when you, for instance, do your complaint at the local department, if it's involved or had the majority as integrated failure, indeed you are increasing the criminal intelligence that will fix the problem. And that solution you transfer your crooks with other areas, and then you do it in other areas, and in the end you had the integration of failures as conjunctural failure with trend in -1 in the very first point, but indeed observed as 0 criminal conjuncture that do not would like to pay this bill but will do. And it's a fraud against the credit and the creditors, hitting the legitimacy of this. And today, day 5, May 2022, we kind of observe and control test that we did that the systemic crime will kind of be systematic, illegal, and abusive against the individual, can do the same against the creditors committee as a moral entity, or even against the US judicial power, which implies against them all at the same group as victim, and hit the legitimacy to charge you or have the legal accomplishment against you, for instance, with a single thing, which is request your reasons by law as a criminal system organized, integrated since 1988 on regular areas. Can you do this? I bet you don't. So the confession of you by the behaviorism is clear. The debitor sees is equal and not explicitly presented as the criminal system. But our model, we did this. The regression, quite simple, quite clear. We will check the board, not the new board, but the board optimized. That the security forum has two countries, the country alpha, the country beta. We'll check that the regression comes from the country with departments or institution as array, with failures inside as minor letter, not the capital letter, which implies the failure of all institutions. The integration of two both indeed give me the criminal organization as new mafia between Brazil and USA. So the regression is quite clear, the value is here, as you can observe, and not have the legal accomplishment as application of the law, considering the international criminal individualized element, I would say, under the international application of the law and punishment, and the prison as an international board that we had a budget to do this. And this budget goes as essential clause at the negotiable instrument holding by factoring. We'll check that the new tracer and the quadrant tracer has a validation. The failure on area 00 goes by association with the area that indeed is a failure, as itself we suggest as 6 up to 20, at least as prison in USA, by all we did. And the punishment as criminal punishment it's not the same thing as the paper rolling, which indeed was used to your individualization, and the regression make this with much more accuracy. But the silence of our institution or groups, especially considering Brazil and USA, put you at the solidarity, and we explode this to other areas, especially observed on 2014 and up to 2022, and this now became a preventive control up to 2028. No escape, cornered for sure, and you must be sent to jail, you all. If the institution do not cooperate, we can put a public institution down, but we must have the follow-up more strictly and verify those institutions. Have a nice week.